Hello everyone, welcome to English POC by V. I'm Emily, and with me is John. Today's episode is all about unconventional success stories, so sit back and join us on this exciting journey as we explore, learn, and grow together.
Okay, so you know all those like classic success stories we hear all the time, right? The good grades, prestigious college, then like straight shot up the corporate ladder, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, today we're going to dive into a whole different kind of success, like the kind that comes from like throwing out the rule book, you know, kind of forging your own path.
Yeah.
You sent over this podcast episode called Storytelling with some really fascinating examples. And let me tell you, these are not your typical rags to riches stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's always really interesting to kind of see how people achieve success by sort of like defying expectations. There's this element of like resourcefulness and resilience, that seems to be pretty common in the people who really like make their own way.
Absolutely, yeah. And our first story dives right into that. It's all about Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. We're talking college dropout turned like billion-dollar business mogul.
Wow.
Not exactly the traditional path. But
Oh, right. What's really interesting about Blakely's story is that it really like flips the script on the idea that you need a fancy degree to make it, as an entrepreneur. She saw a problem, right? Women struggling with panty lines, and then just came up with a solution that no one else is offering.
And she didn't just come up with the idea, she like went all in, investing her entire savings into Spanx. That's some serious commitment. That's not something you see every day.
Yeah, that decision, it really says a lot about her business savvy, actually. Like by bootstrapping the company, she, maintained complete control of the manufacturing process, which was like crucial for a product like Spanx. And it also showed potential investors like, hey, she's serious, she's got skin in the game. And that kind of calculated risk-taking, that can be so powerful.
Makes you wonder, though, was there ever a moment where she doubted that decision? I mean, like, putting everything you have on the line for an untested idea, that takes some serious guts.
You're right, and it wasn't always smooth sailing. Blakely actually faced tons of rejection, especially from hosiery mills, who they just didn't see the potential in her product. So she had to be super persistent and, find creative ways to kind of get her foot in the door.
It almost sounds like those early struggles were actually crucial to her success, kind of forced her to be resourceful, to really fight for her vision.
Exactly. It also highlights a really important point, though. Conviction is essential, right? But it needs to be paired with a willingness to adapt. I mean, Blakely, she could have easily given up, when she faced all those rejections. But she stayed flexible, found solutions, and ultimately, proved the doubters wrong.
It makes you think about all those setbacks we all face in life.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to get discouraged, but sometimes, like those roadblocks, they're actually what push us to think differently. To find a new approach that maybe we wouldn't have considered otherwise. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot to be said for embracing challenges as opportunities for growth,
For sure. Okay, ready for a complete shift in gears?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay, so our next story takes us to the basketball court with Dikembe Mutombo, a guy who became an NBA legend despite a very unconventional start. He didn't even seriously play basketball until he was 21.
Whoa, 21. Wow.
Yeah.
That's right. Mutombo's journey, it's really a testament to the power of adaptability and perseverance. Can you imagine coming to the US on an academic scholarship, barely speaking English, and then pivoting to pursue a professional career in a sport you've barely played? That's almost unfathomable.
And you mentioned he was on an academic scholarship, meaning he wasn't even in the US to play ball initially, right?
Right.
Which makes his rise to NBA stardom even more impressive,
He was actually planning to be a doctor. It makes you wonder how that background in academics, his initial goal of, pursuing medicine, might have actually influenced his approach to basketball. Maybe it instilled a discipline and focus that gave him an edge on the court.
I hadn't considered that before, but it makes a lot of sense. He had to work harder, learn faster, and really prove himself in a world that was totally foreign to him. It's like he had this underdog mentality that fueled his success.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget the language barrier. That must have been incredibly challenging, but it might have also forced him to observe and learn the game in a totally different way, right? Yeah. Relying more on visual cues and nonverbal communication. That could have given him a truly unique perspective on the court.
That's a really interesting point. I hadn't considered how that language barrier, it might have actually been an advantage in some ways. It's like he had to develop a different kind of intelligence, to navigate that world.
Precisely. His journey, it really highlights how our perceived weaknesses can sometimes become our greatest strengths, especially when we're willing to adapt and find creative solutions.
It's inspiring, to see how he took all these potential obstacles and turned them into stepping stones. Mutombo's story is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to chase a dream, no matter where you're starting from or what challenges you face along the way. Ready to dive into our final story?
Absolutely. I'm curious to see what other unconventional paths to success we uncover here.
All right, so this one is about J.K. Rowling, the author who redefined success with the Harry Potter series. Now, obviously, we all know of the global phenomenon, the huge impact her books have had on millions of lives, but her journey to get there, anything but straightforward.
Yeah, Rowling's story is a really powerful reminder that success it isn't always linear. She faced a ton of adversity before achieving recognition, poverty, single parenthood, and numerous rejections from publishers. Those early years, they were incredibly challenging, and it would have been easy to give up on her writing dreams.
You mentioned those rejections from publishers. I mean, imagine pouring your heart and soul into a manuscript only to be told, it's not good enough.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even imagine how discouraging that must have been, especially when you're already facing so many other challenges in your life.
Absolutely. But what's striking about Rowling is her unwavering belief in her story. She had this deep-seated conviction that Harry Potter was something special, and she refused to let those rejections, define her or her work.
It sounds like she had a similar level of self-belief as Sarah Blakely. They both had this unshakable faith in their own vision, even when the rest of the world didn't see it yet.
There's definitely a parallel there, and it speaks to the importance of, trusting your instincts, even when faced with doubt and rejection. It's that inner voice, that unwavering belief in yourself that can often fuel unconventional success.
It makes me think about my own experiences with pursuing creative projects.
Yeah.
There have been times when I've doubted myself, questioned whether my ideas were worth pursuing. I'm curious, have you ever faced that kind of internal struggle, that feeling of wanting to give up on something you were passionate about?
I think it's something most of us grapple with at some point. The key is to find ways to nurture that inner voice, that sense of purpose that drives us to create and share our work with the world.
For sure. And sometimes those moments of self-doubt, they can actually lead to breakthroughs, right?
Yeah.
It forces us to dig deeper, to refine our ideas and, come back even stronger.
That's a great point. It's often in those moments of struggle that we discover our true potential. And it's something we see reflected in Rowling's story, right? She took her personal struggles, her darkest moments, and she channeled them into a story that resonated with millions.
It's incredible to think about the impact that Harry Potter has had on the world. It's not just entertainment, it's a story about friendship, courage, and believing in yourself, even when the odds are stacked against you. And it all came from a place of personal struggle and perseverance. It's amazing what can emerge from those challenging moments in our lives, right?
It really is.
As we're diving into these stories, one thing that really stands out to me is the sheer resilience of these individuals. They all face these setbacks, moments where it would have been so easy to just throw in the towel, but they just kept going.
Yeah, resilience is definitely a recurring theme here, and it's really fascinating to see how it manifests in different ways. For Blakely, it was about pushing past rejection, finding those creative solutions. For Mutombo, it was adapting to a whole new culture and learning a new sport at a pretty late stage in life. And then for Rowling, it was about maintaining her faith in her story despite, all those significant personal and professional challenges she faced.
And it's not just bouncing back from those challenges, it's about using those experiences to fuel their creativity, to find those new and innovative approaches.
Right, exactly. It's almost like the obstacles they faced, they became integral to their success. You know what I mean? They're forced to think outside the box to develop that grit and determination that ultimately set them apart.
I mean, Blakely revolutionized the shapewear industry. Mutombo brought a whole new defensive style to basketball, and Rowling created this literary world that captured the imaginations of millions of people. It makes you wonder if their unconventional paths actually gave them a creative edge,
There's a strong argument to be made for that. being outside of those established norms, it can really foster a different way of thinking, like a willingness to challenge those conventions and push boundaries. They weren't limited by those traditional ways of doing things, which allowed them to see possibilities that, others might have missed.
It's like they were playing by a different set of rules, right?
Right.
Creating their own paths to success, because the existing ones didn't quite fit. And that's incredibly inspiring, especially for anyone who feels like they don't belong in like a particular mold, or that, their journey isn't following that conventional trajectory.
It's a good reminder that, those differences, they can be a source of strength, like a catalyst for innovation and impact. It's about embracing your unique perspective and then using it to your advantage.
Thinking about their stories, it seems like they all had like a clear sense of purpose, like a deep-seated belief in what they were doing. That inner drive, that must have played a huge role in their ability to overcome those challenges and achieve, such remarkable success.
Oh, absolutely. That sense of purpose, that unwavering belief in their own vision, it seems to be a really common thread among those who achieve unconventional success. It's what fuels their passion, their perseverance, their willingness to take risks.
We've been talking a lot about like the external markers of success, the billion-dollar company, the NBA stardom, the global literary phenomenon. But I'm also kind of curious about the internal journeys these individuals went through. What do you think they learned about themselves along the way?
I think they learned, the power of self-belief, the importance of trusting your instincts, staying true to your vision, even when faced with, all that doubt and adversity. They also probably gained a pretty deep understanding of their own resilience, their ability to adapt, overcome obstacles, and then emerge from those challenges even stronger.
And it's not just about individual growth, right? Their stories have had this ripple effect, inspiring countless others to pursue their own dreams, to embrace their own, unique paths, and believe that anything is possible. It's amazing to think about the impact they've had on the world simply by being true to themselves and following their own, unconventional paths.
Their stories, they serve as these powerful reminders that success isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. It's about defining what success means to you, embracing your unique strengths and experiences, and having the courage to forge your own path, even if it looks different from what, society might expect.
What's fascinating to me is how these stories, they resonate with people from all walks of life, whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, an artist, or just someone who's looking to make a change in their life. There's something universally relatable about their journeys. It's about the human spirit, the desire to create something meaningful, to leave your mark on the world. And it's about the belief that even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges, we have the power to overcome them and achieve extraordinary things.
Yeah, I think that's what makes these stories so compelling. They tap into this fundamental human desire to live a life of purpose, to make a difference, to create something that outlasts our own individual journeys, and they offer a sense of hope and possibility, reminding us that even when the path is unconventional, success is it's attainable for those who are willing to put in the work, embrace the challenges, and never give up on their dreams.
Speaking of dreams, as we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive, I kind of want to shift the focus back to you. We've been exploring these incredible stories of unconventional success, and I'm curious, what's resonating with you? What's sparking your imagination?
It's always fascinating to see how these kinds of stories, they can inspire self-reflection, what unconventional path are you drawn to? What's that one thing you've always wanted to do, that dream you've been putting off?
Maybe it's starting your own business, writing that novel you've always dreamed of, learning a new skill, or simply taking a leap of faith and pursuing a passion that's been simmering on the back burner.
Whatever it is, remember that you have the power to create your own unconventional success story.
It all starts with, taking that first step, no matter how small it may seem.
Absolutely. Every journey begins with a single step.
And who knows, that one step could lead you to a destination you never even thought possible. We'll be back in a moment to explore that idea further. All right, so we're back, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. After exploring all these unconventional success stories, what's resonating with you the most?
For me, it's just the reminder that success, it's not this one-size-fits-all formula. These individuals, they didn't follow a prescribed path. They forged their own. They embraced their unique strengths and their unique experiences, and they weren't afraid to like defy expectations. And I think that's such a powerful message for, anyone who's feeling like they don't fit that traditional mold.
I completely agree. And what's really inspiring is that their unconventional paths often led to like groundbreaking innovations. Blakely transforming a whole industry with Spanx, Mutombo bringing a totally unique style to basketball, and then Rowling creating this literary world that touched millions of people's lives. It shows that sometimes it's the people who like think differently, who challenge that status quo. They're the ones who end up making the biggest impact.
Yeah, it's almost like their outsider perspective. It allowed them to see these opportunities that, other people just missed. They weren't bound by conventional thinking, so they were free to experiment, to take risks and to ultimately create something truly unique and valuable.
So if you're feeling stuck, if you're questioning your current path, or if you're, longing for something more, just take inspiration from these stories. Remember Sarah Blakely's like unwavering belief in her idea, even when she faced like rejection after rejection. Think about Dikembe Mutombo's determination to succeed in a new country, a new sport, right? And consider J.K. Rowling's perseverance in writing Harry Potter despite facing so many obstacles.
Their journeys, they remind us that it's never too late to pursue those passions, that setbacks are really just opportunities for growth, and that your unique perspective, it's your greatest asset.
We talked about taking that first step towards your unconventional path.
Yeah.
But what if you're not even sure what that path looks like yet?
Well, I think that's where the real adventure begins, right?
Yeah.
It's about exploring your interests, experimenting with different ideas, and allowing yourself to be open to those unexpected possibilities. It might be a little messy and uncertain at times, but that's often where the most exciting discoveries happen.
And don't be afraid to like seek out mentors, connect with those like-minded individuals, and surround yourself with people who really support your vision. Having that strong network, it can make all the difference when you're navigating like uncharted territory.
Oh, for sure. And remember, success, it's a journey, not a destination. It's about the experiences you have along the way, the lessons you learn, and the impact you make on the world. So embrace the unknown, trust your instincts, and dare to create your own unconventional success story. Beautifully
said. I love that. And who knows, maybe someday we'll be featuring your story on a future episode of The Deep Dive.
That would be awesome.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of unconventional success. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.